It is our honor to introduce our first distinguished speaker today. He is currently the U.S. Chair and Senior Partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has been published or quoted in several publications and a frequent and valued contributor in industry events. He has spent the past 5 years transforming PwC into a model-inclusive workplace, advocating for more diversity in the rest of corporate America. Under his tenure, he has brought these issues into the forefront of the firm's focus. He is a passionate believer that businesses must make a stand on issues that prohibit progress. Thus, his session today will delve on how businesses can be a part of the solution in creating equitable distribution of opportunities and how this can translate to a better bottom line. Please give a virtual round of applause for Mr. Tim Ryan.
Our world is transforming. Countries, businesses, and society are under pressure like never before. Asymmetry of wealth is destabilizing our markets. Disruption is changing our ways of working. Age disparity stretches our infrastructures. Polarization of opinion divides us further, resulting in a loss of trust in our institutions. Now is the time to tackle the issues and challenges generated by ADAPT. Through working with business and organizations to create sustained outcomes. But what new outcomes do our clients need to achieve? With our expertise in finance, we can help deal with the unexpected, balance their books, and invest for the future. In a fracturing world, we can bring clarity to complexity, bridge borders, and resolve differences. Our knowledge of the atmosphere and the risks of climate change will help us reduce CO2 and biodiversity loss, create a greener future, and add value for customers, investors, and society. Through our grasp of complex social issues, we can address inequalities and division, and promote better ways of working. With our skill set in technologies, we can advise and build specialist expertise to help organizations adapt and enhance their capabilities. Our strategy is the new equation to build trust and deliver sustained outcomes, human-led and tech-powered through our platforms, competencies, and capabilities. Our community of solvers are uniquely positioned to help clients adapt fast.
Good morning. My name is Tim Ryan. I'm the chair and senior partner of PwC here in the US, and I'm coming live to you from Boston. It's exactly 12 hours ahead. Or 12 hours behind, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me here today. I'm looking forward to spending the time with you all. Let me first start by saying thank you. Thank you all for your leadership over the last almost 2 years. As the opening videos showed, it has been an incredible time to be a leader. You have customers, you have your employees, you have your communities who have all turned to you as business leaders for leadership, for compassion, for solutions, and for hope at times when hope seemed impossible. For me, one of the shining things that have come out of this horrible pandemic is to see how business has stepped up all across the globe, taking care of their critical stakeholders, employees, communities, while delivering for their customers. What I'd like to spend some time this morning speaking with you all about is what we call the new equation at PwC. As the opening video shared, we just launched a new strategy at PwC that will guide us for the next 10 years. That strategy was in development for over 2.5 years. As the opening video pointed out, this conference is not only about hindsight, it's about insight, and it's about foresight. What I'd like to share with you is what we looked at as we landed on the new equation. We studied the ADAPT framework. the asymmetries, the disruption in tech and climate, age discrepancies and pressure on infrastructure, polarization of thought in governments and politics, and not only within countries, but across countries. And we studied where trust comes in, not only for governments, but for business. We talked to thousands of our clients and we looked at the trends. And it became very clear to us that the topics that are first and foremost on the minds of our clients go to how do you navigate, lead, and win, not only in the bottom line, but on how you drive change in your communities for your stakeholders, and how do you drive success that then becomes sustainable. And at PwC in June, we launched what is called the New Equation, and it's our global strategy that will drive us for the next 10 years as we look to meet the needs of our clients. Let me share a little around what we heard from CEOs across the board. What we heard from CEOs is we heard that they're generally optimistic about their ability to change their businesses. All across the globe, we've seen companies drive more automation, drive more efficiencies, more productivity, open new channels as they embrace technology. And they feel good about that. In the US, CEOs feel reasonably good about growth and their ability to drive growth in a market that is generally doing okay, clearly buoyed by government support, but they generally feel good about growth. M&A and reshaping portfolios to be relevant for the future. Getting rid of businesses that are high carbon, businesses that are low growth, businesses that don't have room for automation, and shifting and rebuilding portfolios has put M&A at the forefront of companies' minds. And businesses generally feel pretty good about those topics. But at the same time, in moments of humility, what we are hearing from the CEO community is that it is more difficult now than ever to navigate the number of stakeholders that are expected to meet their needs. One CEO shared with me fairly recently, she said, "Tim, my predecessor, with all due respect, he had it easy. He had to worry about investors and employees and customers. Today, I not only have to worry about employees, investors, and customers, I've got to worry about a whole broader set of stakeholders. I've got to worry about my communities, not just here in the United States, but across the globe where I do business. I've got to worry about regulators who have a view of how I'm doing business. I've got to worry about the general population who judges not only at the bar of regulation, but higher. And I've also got to worry about even my traditional three stakeholders, customers, employees, investors, because their expectations are changing rapidly. Investors care about ESG. Investors not only care about the bottom line, but am I doing the right thing? My employees want us to be more diverse, but candidly, not all of them want that. And my communities and my customers want more value. They want better service, better products, and they're increasingly, insatiably also desiring a lower cost. And the CEO said to me, she said, "Tim, that's a really tough environment. I can't figure out when I should speak up. I can't figure out when I should lay out my strategy. I can't figure out when I should admit I'm not hitting on all cylinders. And I can't figure out how to deal with mixed signals because some want me to go faster and some want me to go slower." Folks, what I would tell you is the views of CEOs today, there's a lot of optimism around what they can control. Growth, transformation, moving to the cloud, M&A. But I would also say there's massive humility around what they can't control. When will the pandemic end? What will the future of work look like? What's the next thing to come around the corner that I did not anticipate for my stakeholders? And how do I culturally get ahead of that? And how do I meet the needs for short-term profits, but at the same time knowing my stakeholders expect me to do better? Better with my employees, better in my communities, better to be part of this broad solution around critical topics like inclusion, like diversity, like ESG, and the like. And more of the time we spend with CEOs, it's on that topic, because that, when you peek around the corner, is what will define the winners and the losers. Now, folks, when we studied the New Equation, we saw our clients in the future focusing on two critical topics. The first one, trust. What we saw today is that our clients are largely reacting to whatever is in front of them and dealing with whatever fire or challenge has been presented with them, as opposed to holistically, how do you think about building trust? For example, many of our clients have shared with us that the number of topics they're expected to be trustworthy on is only increasing. And at the same time, the expectations to get it right are going up. For example, many companies today are dealing with cyber challenges, data protection, data security. Many clients today are dealing with data privacy, ethical use of customer data. Almost every business today is using more and more customer data. Regulation is lagging, in some cases, decades. And regulation is a mixed bag across the globe. And companies are reacting to what customers, what communities, and what regulators think about their use of customer data. They're also looking at ESG. Am I doing my role in the environment? I'll come back to that. Am I doing the right thing socially? They're coming back to worker pay, worker safety. Are the working conditions right? Taxes and tax transparency. Am I paying not only the legal amount, but am I paying my fair share as a corporation? In all of these topics today, our clients are largely reacting, but when you peek around the corner and you think about a polarized world, you think about a role with asymmetries between those who have wealth and those who don't have wealth, those who have access to education, access to clean water, access to healthy food, and those who don't. That asymmetry will cause more polarization, and it causes companies to think, how do I get ahead of this? How do I build a system and a culture of not only reacting to when somebody says I can't be trusted, but how do I build a culture amongst my leadership team, the right systems and processes, so we're peeking ahead, not just to be compliant, but to be ahead of the game. And one of the biggest issues that will define success going forward is, can I as a business be trusted? And folks, that's hard because there's no definition of trust. It is in the eyes of the beholder. Customers have one definition of trust. Employees have another definition of trust. Regulators have another view. Investors have another view. And the communities that you do business in have a different view. That topic is a central focus of CEOs today because they know if they're not trusted, the ability to hire the right talent, the ability to drive innovation, the ability to sell your product in a hyper-competitive market, all will be challenged. And under the new equation, we saw this as one of the most defining issues for companies going forward. The other major challenge we saw that will present and hit our clients over the next 10 years is driving sustained outcomes, both financially and what you're doing with society. It's clear today our clients all across the globe, whether it be in Philippines, Southeast Asia, Europe, United States, South America, our clients are operating, like all of you, in hyper-competitive environments. There's no easy businesses. There's no businesses where there isn't a high number of entrants who are competing. And companies, as they transform, as they move to the cloud, as they digitize, as they reshape their portfolios to not only repair coming out of the pandemic, but also reshape their portfolios to do good by climate, to do the right things socially. How do you do that and meet the needs of investors that is insatiable to make sure you are delivering the right returns as you change your business? Because investors have been clear they expect both. They expect businesses to do the right things, but they also expect market-leading returns on their investments. And when we looked at what the ADAPT frameworks told us, when we look at what the market is telling us, what you're all telling us, gaining trust and driving sustained outcomes are two of the most important issues that will define success over the next 10 years. And that is what drove the new equation. It's what drove PwC globally to say we'll be investing $12 billion more than we otherwise would have to help our clients solve those elements of trust and sustained outcomes. In the United States, one of those major efforts that we launched was a program called Tomorrow Takes Trust. And under Tomorrow Takes Trust, it's a $300 million commitment to accomplish two things. First, is to help educate 25,000 Black and Latinx students to get them ready for the workforce. And that PwC will hire 10,000 of them to help get more diversity, more representation in the workplace. The other element of Tomorrow Takes Trust is a Trust Leadership Institute. Because what we saw and what we heard from our clients is that while leadership feels equipped to lead today, when they peek around the corner, how do you answer challenging questions about profit versus driving sustained outcomes? How do you have ethical decision-making around technology? How do you build ethical decisions in your cyber strategy? How do you treat your employees right, but also have the right business results? And we launched a Trust Leadership Institution where we will take over the next 3 years, 10,000 current and future C-suite executives through our Leadership Institute that we're doing with one of the leading trust professors from Harvard University, and also working with Edelman, who you'll hear from later on today, one of the leaders in trust. How do we find ways to learn new skills as executives to make these complicated decisions? And our first cohort will start in November as we begin to take and learn, go on this journey together. In the Trust Leadership Institute, in the commitment to 25,000 Black and Latinx students to get them into the workplace, that's a major step in our direction to make sure we are driving big societal change while at the same time helping our clients. Folks, these questions are the critical ones that executives need to answer. I, for one, I'm nervous, but I'm equally excited because I think most of us as leaders, we want the opportunity to make a difference. And I would argue, when you look at the ADAPT framework, it's going to be one of the most challenging periods in the history of the world. It's also going to be one of the biggest opportunities for businesses to make a difference. We're seeing all across the globe businesses step up. Just take climate, for example, the E in ESG. We in the US have now not more than half of the Fortune 1000 companies have made a net zero commitment. Most of those came in the last 18 months. That's remarkable. Folks, that is crystal clear commitment to change. And over the next several years, those companies will be driving changes in their supply chain as they look to work with their supply chain to take carbon out of the environment. They'll be working with their employees and their customers to change expectations, change buying patterns, change the way they work, all with the goal of making their environment better. These are goals that will not only span the current leadership team, but it'll go to the company's future leadership team. And there's clear signs that the business community in the US and across the globe is ready to step up to the opportunity there. We're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars poured into clean energy, clean water, carbon-free ways to produce energy. And companies today are preparing themselves like never before to innovate, to take advantage of the new technologies, to put them into their processes and to work with their supply chain partners also to drive change. Businesses are embracing the opportunity to stand up. We're seeing record numbers of transparency reports where companies are investing in transparency to tell their story. Part of gaining trust is communicating candidly where you're trying to go and being open about where you've made progress and where you've lagged progress. At PwC, a year ago, this past August, we issued our first ever diversity, inclusion, transparency report. Our goal was to be the most transparent large company or organization in the United States. We studied. We looked at where every company has gone, and we went 2 steps further in transparency. And folks, it wasn't a perfect story. We have clear gaps in certain elements of our representation, but we wanted to be the leaders and build trust and say, look, here's what we're proud of, but also here's where we need to go. And at the end of this month, we'll issue our second transparency report. And to give you a bit of the headline, 14 out of the 18 areas we targeted for improvement, we made progress. In 4, we didn't. And in a pandemic year, we shared transparently where we didn't make progress in 4 of the 18 and what we're going to do going forward, because we believe part of trust is being humble. Part of being trust is laying out where the opportunities are for improvement. And we're excited about that opportunity to do that. The last thing that I want to mention is I know diversity and inclusion is hugely important to all of you as CEOs, not only with inside your 4 walls, but outside of your 4 walls. And at PwC, what we've been working on is pulling the business community together to drive change together, because diversity and inclusion should not be a competitive issue. It is a big societal opportunity to make a difference. We started a group 5 years ago called CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. The website is ceoaction.com. I would encourage you to take a look. Today, we have over 2,500 CEOs in the United States who have come together to say, we're going to build trust by working together to improve inclusion in the workplace. On that website, there's over 800 best practices around how you improve recruiting, how you improve representation at all levels, how you drive pay equity, how you ensure that everybody is treated fairly. It's a clear example of the business community not just saying they want to do good, but taking action as a community to say we are going to do better and we want you to track us on our progress. Folks, in a minute, I'm going to switch to Alex, my partner, and we're going to have a dialogue about building trust. I want to leave you with this. When I think about hindsight, insights, and foresight, looking backwards, the last year has been one of the most challenging times in the period of history. As someone who's been at PwC for over 30 years, I thought the dot-com bubble, I thought the financial crisis were challenging. The pandemic has made those look small. The pandemic is an amazing shared experience all across the globe. We've all been through the same journey. We've lost loved ones. We're worried about our safety. We're worried about the ability to put food on the table, the ability to get things where they need to be. How we work has changed. How we interact has changed. In hindsight, amongst all that tragedy, what has really been amazing is how we've come together, how we've been agile, how we cared for each other, and how we showed that business can be a force for good, because we didn't leave our employees behind. We didn't leave our communities behind. The insights, the world is changing. The expectations of trust for business is only going up. The number of topics is very broad. A narrow definition of trust is a dangerous mistake. The trends are clear. The expectations on business are increasing around a whole range of topics. And all you need to do is pick up the newspaper today. Companies all across the globe are being challenged. Do you pay your fair share of taxes? Do you protect my data? Do you use my data ethically? Do you treat workers fairly? Are you responsible to the environment? Are you treating your employees in an inclusive way? Those are all related to trust. And if we don't move as a business community, we miss the opportunity to continue to build off of the trust that we gained in the pandemic. A major opportunity for all of us. And this gets to the foresight. Folks, as leaders, part of our job is to be realistic. But a bigger part of our job is to show people hope. And when I look out, there's massive opportunity for hope. It's going to require different thinking, different muscles. But when I look at how business has performed over the last 18, 20 months, it's been remarkable. And we have the ability to lead not only our people, but our communities and our stakeholders, and showing them to a much, much brighter future, and the opportunity to lead with our own actions around critical areas like ESG, diversity, inclusion, transforming our business and not leaving workers behind. And if we do that, when I look into the future, 10 years from now, business is literally the bedrock of trust in our society. And with that, Alex, I'm going to turn over to you, and I look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Tim. That is enlightening, inspiring. First of all, good morning there in Boston. Good evening there in Boston, Tim. It's a beautiful morning here in Manila. Thank you for joining us, Tim. Really much appreciated. But you know, your last message there resonates about the responsibility of leaders to build hope, and that is exactly what we've seen in this MAP PwC survey, a CEO survey that we've conducted. But let me throw my first question to you, Tim. We have a few items to cover. You know, the U.S. has recently undergone major shift in leadership, Tim, and in the country we're going to have our own presidential elections next year. And during these times, or especially during these times, views can get really diverse and can get intensely polarized. And what do you think is the role of business leaders in managing through these polarized issues and these leadership changes?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I would share with you, I have the privilege in my role of meeting with hundreds of CEOs on an annual basis. Without a doubt, that question has been one of the most significant challenges for CEOs in the United States over the last 12 months. When you look at the divisiveness in the United States between Trump and Biden, Democrats and Republicans, it has permeated society, it has permeated the workplace, it has permeated customer bases, and it is a real big struggle for CEOs. So what do I think our role is? Before I jump to that, I encourage the leaders to talk about it. Like, as CEOs, to be trusted, it's okay to admit you don't know the answer. The best CEOs that I know, they're talking with their boards. They're talking with their outside advisors. I would tell you, I've had well over 100 conversations with different CEOs thinking it through. But I do think if we want to be trusted, as my mother taught me, you don't get something for nothing. If we want to be trusted, we need to have a North Star as leaders. And what I would suggest leaders do is know what your North Star is. That gets to a company's values, to what your purpose is. I don't view it as an organization's job to be political, but I also think it's naive to assume we're going to be apolitical. And therefore, your North Star of your values and your purpose should guide which issues you weigh in on, and not the political affiliation of you or your organization. For example, there's been a number of topics on either side that we have weighed in on at PwC. Diversity and inclusion is critically important to us. It has been for 25 years, and 5 years ago, we upped our game. When the United States began to close its borders, immigration is a very important issue to business. It's important to our people. We have thousands of people on green cards. We spoke up. That was important, regardless of the political issue, but it was guided by our North Star. When we saw violence on January 6th on Capitol Hill, that was against our values, and our people needed to know that we don't stand for violence. We stand for robust debate. We stand for encouragement and dialogue. So what I would encourage you all to do before the issues hit is to talk about when you will weigh in. And if your North Star is to be trusted, let your values and purpose guide the way, because you can play it safe by not speaking up. But when you play it safe, you're giving up the opportunity to be trusted and gain the hearts and minds of your different stakeholders.
Thank you, Tim. Talking about a rising North Star, Tim, the values of the CEOs behind the implementation of ESG in their businesses. And in our survey, in that CEO survey, 36% of the CEOs have said that that they're actually measuring and reporting the impact to their bottom line of their ESG efforts. Jade will talk about that later. But Tim, I don't know, because most of the CEOs still think about ESG as something which is good for the future, while there are some that are already measuring their impact in this short term. What do you think, Tim? Does ESG really impact the bottom line in the short term, and what is its impact in the bottom line in the future?
Yeah, Alex, it's a great question. I mean, so the answer is it depends on which industry, right, we're talking about. And in some industries, particularly those tied to fossil fuels or heavily tied to very carbon-heavy businesses, they are seeing it today. Others, it's in anticipation that it's going to come in the very, very near future as more governments drive regulation, as investors continue to flex their muscles, and as consumers ultimately change buying patterns. So I will admit, first of all, some is more in here and now, and some is the future. Here's our advice. The first thing I would implore is to understand that your largest companies globally are making net zero commitments. We all need to take note of that, because you have major companies like General Motors, like Microsoft, like Verizon, who are making these commitments. And the only way they get there is to deal with their scope 3, which is their supply chain, which means we're all in somebody's supply chain. We're all in somebody's supply chain. And some of us may make auto parts, some of us may have knowledge workers that work for these companies, some of us may make computer chips, but we're all in somebody's supply chain. The only way these large companies get there is if they drive change through the supply chain. The theme of this conference is peeking around the corner. That's coming sooner than later. That has a real potential to drive business if you change first, but also to lose business if you change second. And it's important for us to understand in the boardroom, in the C-suite, what net zero really means to your business. And that means tracing who you sell to and where it goes. That's coming. The second thing I would say is you all have investors in your companies. Some of you have traditional institutional investors. Some of you have private equity. Some of you have private capital and their family capital. Understand the expectations of your investors. I'm here in Boston. A month ago, I met with the major investment houses here in Boston. Many of them are headquartered here. The major institutional investors, they are rapidly changing how they assess companies, and it will drive cost of capital. Is it here today? Outside of energy and fossil fuels? Mostly no. But is it coming quickly? Yes, it is. So I think that's an important dialogue to have. I would just encourage people, even though you may not be feeling it today, don't get caught flat-footed, because we see it coming very quickly. So hopefully that helps, Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. But Tim, help me understand something here. Governance focus is quite helpful to business. It builds trust. It impacts the bottom line, definitely. You talked about net zero, which is an environmental initiative, and I can also understand that because business impacts the environment, so they should really do something about it. But societal issues, Tim, problems and societal issues which are traditionally for the government to solve, business leaders are also taking them on. But should business really take this on their shoulders, societal issues?
Yeah, Alex, thank you. It's a tough question, but it's an important question. What I would say is, I don't think business has a choice. Now, every business is different. One of the things I learned in my career early on is you never say all and you never say none, because you'll be wrong. Most businesses don't have a choice. Why do I say that? Because we globally are in a talent war. Go back to the ADAPT framework. Many countries across the globe are getting older. Future talent cares about these societal issues. At PwC here in the US, our average age is 28 years old. If PwC isn't a leader on ESG, if we're not a leader on diversity inclusion, we will not get the people to serve our clients. all of a sudden what seems societal is a business imperative. This year alone at PwC in the United States, we had over 400 clients tell us, if your teams aren't diverse, you're going to have a harder time getting our business. All of a sudden, that societal becomes a business imperative. Now, yes, different businesses are moving at different paces, but I would encourage changing the framework of how we look at this issue of either or. I don't view it as it's either society or profits. They're slowly becoming one and the same, admittedly at different paces, admittedly in different industries or different parts of the world. But when you look around the corner, it's clear that those two are merging. And that's what's happened over the last 5 years. And it's coming together even more. And let's be candid, Alex, that's hard for a CEO who was brought up thinking primarily about profit.
Yeah, and talking about people, Tim, on diversity and inclusion, like in the Philippines, like in the Philippine firm, it's probably not unique, but we've had over decades a series of female leaders. There was a time I was the only male in the management board, and I thought that diversity was really needed to protect the male. But levity aside, Tim, if gender is not an issue, then what should we focus on in terms of advocacy on diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I would say two things. First of all, I want to congratulate the Philippines. I've had time in the past to really get to know a number of companies headquartered in the Philippines. The progress you've made on gender is something that I aspire to for the American business community. So I applaud the progress you've made. I would ask you all to think about two things. I would ask you to think about inclusion, not just representation. I think it's great where your numbers are in terms of gender, in terms of representation. Part of the question is are you as inclusive and equally inclusive? I can tell you at PwC, we've made great progress here in the US around gender, Black, and Latinx. I think our big opportunity is to make sure everybody feels as included. It's not just being invited to the dance, but are you being asked to dance? I would say the other thing is it's important for a company to mirror their society. In Philippines, when you look at other disadvantaged groups or underrepresented groups, disabled people, when you look at people maybe indigenous, to think about what is your goal to mirror the communities that you do business in. And so I think the element of thinking about inclusion, what's the workplace like? By the way, that goes to trust, that goes to productivity, that goes to innovation. So are you as inclusive as you can be? And then what other groups are underrepresented that really deserve special attention by the management team and the board?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Still on people and productivity, Tim. In Blair Shepard's book, 10 Years to Midnight, he alluded to the depth of technology-based disruptions. That's where AI can probably substitute human intelligence. But he also talked about the possible trauma in the job market. And what is your view here, Tim? Should we really slow down on technology?
Yeah, I don't think competitive pressures won't allow us to slow down on technology. We all know as leaders of businesses, if we're not driving our costs down on a regular basis, we won't be competitive. Whether you are in healthcare, whether you're in manufacturing, technology, professional services, or banking, insurance, driving efficiency is critically important. I don't think we have a choice. Where I do think we have a choice, and this goes to trust, is not leaving our workers behind. We all have a responsibility not to put people on the street. We have a responsibility to make sure our employees have the right skill sets to be relevant. And at PwC, in the US, we have made employee upskilling an employee benefit no different than healthcare or 401k. 5 years ago, we said to our employees, We know you're worried about your job relevance. We know you're worried about your ability to keep up with machine-based learning, artificial intelligence, automation. And we now teach our people annually throughout the year how to build a bot, how to build an automation, how to understand and use artificial intelligence, their role in machine-based learning, what it means to move to the cloud. And so I think what is important, this gets to trust in living your purpose and understanding the expectation for business is while you're driving automation, how are you also making sure the workforce keeps up at the same time? I think slowing down technology is a losing proposition, but I also believe throwing people in the street is also a losing proposition as well. I think it's a little bit of both.
Thank you, Tim. We're down to our last question. In the interest of time, Tim, I've seen a number of changes in PwC all throughout these years, but there is nothing like the change that I'm seeing now. It's a once in a generation change. And I've also heard in the organization, and we've talked about it a lot, about building trust. But it's really about the first time that I've been hearing trust as a business. And can you explain the difference, if any, Tim?
Yep. When I loved earlier in that opening video, there was something that talked about action. I do believe today's leaders, and I have the privilege to learn from some of the best across the globe. You need to be bold, and you need to be willing to take action, whether it be around inclusion or data or privacy or whatever it is. At PwC, we believe so passionately that the two biggest issues facing our clients will be gaining trust and building sustained outcomes that we reorganized our business. And we reorganized into two fundamental segments. The first segment is we built a segment that is now the world's largest trust business. And we also built a segment that drives sustained outcomes for our clients. And it's a once in a generation change to change your operating model to allow you to be best positioned to help your clients. Anybody in our organization that helps our clients now with trust, financial statement auditing, tax compliance, cyber, the ability to drive ESG, it's all under one element. So we can give our people the same training, the same access to the tools to drive trust. And so we can be best positioned to have all of those capabilities to bring them to our clients to help them out. That reorganization with almost 60,000 people was incredibly complex. But if we're serious about helping our clients build trust, the right technology, the right systems, the right culture, credentials, training, checks and balances, controls, oversight, governance, and ultimately reporting, we needed to do that reorganization. We believe the two biggest needs our clients will have for us are building trust and driving sustained outcomes, Alex, and we changed our business model to do that. So I hope that helps. It's a big change.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was all very wonderful, very enlightening, and I'm sure that it's very valuable to all our participants this morning. On behalf of MAP and PwC Philippines, heartfelt thanks to you, Tim. Stay safe and strong, Tim.
Thank you, Alex, and I hope you all have a great conference, and thank you for your leadership, everybody. Take care.